There we are. This is panel 2. Thanks for joining us. Looks like our numbers are climbing quickly and everybody's here. Suzanne, I'm going to let you take us from here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, for attending the conference, and welcome to the Cleveland Market Update. My name is Suzanne Hamilton. I'm an SVP at Erie Bank. Erie Bank entered the Northeast Ohio market several years ago through the acquisition of Lake National Bank. And I encourage you to look for our signs around projects around town. Today, we are here with a dynamic panel of experts to provide a Cleveland market update. I am going to ask each panel member to introduce themselves, as they know who they are, who they work for, and their area of expertise much better than I do. And we'll start with Doug Holtzman with Anchor Cleveland.
Hi, thanks, Suzanne, sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Holtzman. I am Vice President at Anchor Cleveland. Started in the real estate industry in 2008, obviously a great time, and went into brokerage in 2009. And I've been here at Anchor for about 2.5 to 3 years now. Anchor Cleveland is a full-service retail brokerage company. We focus on leasing, investment sales, land sales. On the leasing side, we represent tenants, landlords, developers, and that's throughout the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Fred Herrera is with CBRE.
Good morning, everyone. Fred Herrera, CBRE, based in Cleveland. I joined the company in 1988. And Dave Browning, I think at the time, was the youngest managing director in the country for CBRE at the time, and we have a long tenure together. So 32 years later, here we are in the middle of the COVID crisis, and look forward to speaking more about the current situation in the market.
Thank you. Rico Petros with Cushman & Wakefield, Cresco.
Good morning, everyone. Rico Petro with Cushman & Wakefield Cresco Real Estate. I'm a principal at the firm, specializing in office space, both on the lease and investment sale component. And happy to join and answer any questions about this unique real estate market that we're involved in.
Thank you, Rico. And our final panelist is Craig Miller with Duffy & Duffy.
Good morning. I'm Craig Miller. I'm a native of Cleveland and president at Duffy & Duffy Cost Segregation in Westlake. I also have the honor of serving on the NAIOP of Ohio State Board since 2009 and the NAIOP Finance and Tax Subcommittee in Washington, D.C. I look forward to today's program.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to kick off our questions with the general state of your particular market area. And in that discussion, let us know how COVID-19 has impacted it. And Fred, if you could kick us off on this question, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Susan. So I'd like to start off by saying, plenty of masks, plenty of Purell, but the industrial market overall has been weathering the storm actually quite well. There's sectors that have been hit negatively, other sectors that are actually doing quite well. Just overall in the marketplace, we're at a 4.5% vacancy. Prior period 12 months ago, we were at 4%. So vacancy is holding pretty steady. Market rents for industrial are running about $5.14 per square foot. That's actually an increase year over year. Same with sale prices are about a 2% increase. Average sale price for an industrial building is $40 or $42 per square foot. Average cap rate in the market is 9%, and that's there's a wide range of cap rates, which we can get more into later. But the overall average is a 9% cap rate. Net absorption is actually down, but I think the reason it is down is because some of the big buildings that have been absorbed lately, predominantly by Amazon, have not been accounted for yet in the numbers. Prior period, we typically, in a typical year in Northeast Ohio, we absorb about 1.7 million square feet of industrial space. 12 months ago, it was 1.3 million, and the latest figure is a negative 250,000 square feet for the trailing 12-month period. There's about 2 million square feet of construction overall. So just a quick snapshot on the market. The market is held overall pretty steady, but just getting into the market in more detail, what is driving the activity in the marketplace? And really, it is we're seeing it mainly from e-commerce, PPE related, food related, and building products. I think most of the activity in the marketplace, you could account for it in one of these particular groups. Other activity is coming from the select manufacturing, like manufacturing related to the tech center or the tech industry, infrastructure in general, and building products. So during when the crisis hit, there was a couple week period where there was just a shock to the industrial sector. Maybe there was 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks where the dust was settling. Everybody was trying to figure out where things were headed industrially. But after a couple weeks, I think if you ask most industrial brokers in the marketplace, things have stayed pretty active during this period, and showings, sales, and lease activity generally is pretty good in the market.
Okay, it doesn't matter who goes next. You just, Rico, you want to take your turn?
Sure. As far as the office sector, it's a little different than what Fred had mentioned. Our market pretty much hit a pause for the month of March, April, and most of May. So what we saw was many of the tours, especially with real estate departments, whether that was a director of real estate or a procurement officer, just press hold on travel. So everything kind of hit the pause button, and we saw a limited pickup of activity. I would say for the last trailing 60 days or 8 weeks, we're probably looking at 20 to 25% of the deal flow that we would see during the summer months in the Cleveland MSA. I think that as a whole, the market's tracking vacancy is still in the mid-teens for space in the marketplace. We are going to see an uptick of that because of some subleases. Where we see the most uncertainty, I would say, is in a couple micro sectors of the office market. These include co-working, obviously with the short-term nature of those leases to individuals or companies. They're having some issues with cash flow. The second is maybe more of a larger submarket of the office sector in the tech area of office space. I think those groups are considering what their long-term need is going to be from office space. Can they do and operate virtually? As a whole, we're expecting demand to pick up once there's more of a solution to what's happening with COVID-19. As far as office sales go, from an investment standpoint, it's kind of all over the board. I think investors are tracking cash flow. So those are typically a little bit healthier in the office sector than what you can find in industrial, retail, or apartments. So if somebody's kind of chasing cash flow, office is still a good place to invest. But I think they're being very selective on what credit they're willing to chase and invest in. And they're also trying to understand that company's long-term outlook on what they're going to be doing with their office space post-COVID. Great.
And before we move to Craig, Todd, I want to let you know that I'm not seeing any questions in the chat forum. So if they are, tell me what I need to be doing differently.
I'll let you know there don't appear to be any right now.
Okay.
I'll take this offer down, and that might free it up for some people, but right now I don't see anything.
So all I see is a box that says enable chat. Should I shut that box? I'm afraid.
Leave it on.
All righty. Craig, please let us know about your area.
I think Duffy and Duffy specializes in engineered cost segregation studies. The benefit is depreciation and income tax shielding. And any gains that our company has seen in the last 5-6 years came to kind of a screeching halt back in March for select industries, those being restaurant and auto dealers primarily. The job gains that the U.S. saw in the last 5 years kind of evaporated in March and April, and the outlook isn't good that those jobs aren't going to return until maybe 2025. So that's bad for those industries. But we're remaining strong and have remained strong on multifamily apartments and on assisted living. Both have been very, very good on both the transfer side and the new permitting, new ground up construction. Plus, Rico mentioned and Fred mentioned the industrial demand for transfers of existing properties and new ground up construction in warehouse logistics and distribution. So, our industry lags. We're still working on 2019 study reports for clients that either just filed their tax returns that were extended and due July 15th, or who filed extensions and will file in September and October. So the pipeline of work for us, for clients seeking to shield income tax liability for 2019, the demand is there, but the number of new requests for 2020, there were no new requests in the second half of March and the first part of April. And it remains to be seen between now and year end and next year what that pipeline is going to look like.
Okay. And Fred.
Okay, mic is on. So, we're seeing plenty of activity in the marketplace. Some of the examples of PPE related natural essentials, piping rock, RB Sigma, Blue Spark, Nichols paper in the marketplace. Food related is we have freezer cooler requirements in the marketplace of 200,000 square feet. So the biggest challenge we have in the market right now is finding the product for the requirements that are out there. There's no question there's sectors that are hurting pretty bad. Certain automotive sectors, there's a couple of closures that were just announced down in the Akron area, and both of those, Axiom and AGS, were automotive related. And I think combined, they total 400 to 500 lost jobs. So, there'll continue to be challenging times for certain sectors in the market. The companies that are growing and expanding for the reasons mentioned before, the biggest challenge is to find suitable facilities for them. The spec buildings that have gone up around town, there's about half dozen totaling about 1 million square feet. There's very strong activity on those buildings. So those buildings may disappear quite soon. So we're going to be constrained as far as new inventory in the marketplace and in modern high cube space.
Thank you. And Doug, let us know about the general market for you. And then also just go ahead and lead into what you see as the greatest challenge and how it might be pivoted into an opportunity as well.
Got it. All right, thanks. Our general state of the retail world is there's still a lot of unknowns out there. Part of the issue is, Ohio has reopened, but other states have not. So you have, multi-phase plans for different states that are varying, and there's just a lot of confusion. And so we're still trying to figure out, where things are going to be headed. So far we've experienced a cleansing of the market. There's been a number of bankruptcy filings, and those in the industry saw these coming, but our projections were, it was over the course of 10 years and not 10 weeks. Some of those, filings were, JCPenney, Stage Stores, Steinmart just announced the other day, Pier 1, Art Van, Furniture. So COVID expedited the process on these tenants going under, but for those of us who touch and feel and see it every day, we knew that it was an antiquated model that these retailers were working with, and it was just a matter of time of when they would leave and go out. And so outside the cleansing, we've seen recovery from some tenants that have been able to figure out how to adapt and work in today's environment. Before COVID, with some of the tenants that we represent, we were going after some of those retailers that we thought may have been struggling at a specific location. Now, obviously, with what's known in the world, we're really pushing forward with our active tenants to pursue those locations. We're still seeing activity in the market. Retailers and tenants are just more cautious. Everyone's adding pandemic clause language, so the attorneys are staying nice and busy, creating new language. We've seen on new LOIs, maybe a slight decrease in rent, at least early on, for the first couple of years till we can get through COVID-19. And everyone, for the most part, has the same general feeling that in a couple of years, we're going to have this figured out. We're going to go back to somewhat of a normal state of operation, and then we'll feel more comfortable going back to, market rent numbers. So, for those retailers that have figured it out, and when I say figured out, I'm talking about, restaurants having a big push in takeout and curbside pickup, and the QSRs utilizing drive-through or pickup windows, just being more accessible and trying to limit the interaction, person to person. We're seeing a lot of cashierless stores. Wawa just announced that they're coming out with a drive-through only convenience store, one in Pennsylvania, one in New Jersey. So the activity, yes, it was kind of scary in March, but once the store started to reopen, we started to get our footing again, and we're proceeding forward. And so that kind of leads me into the greatest challenge is, we still just don't know what the future is going to look like. Getting a vaccine or some cure for this tomorrow, obviously, would pan out a lot better for most of us involved, but we just don't know. And there's a lot of uncertainty in, how things are going to change. And, one concern that some tenants that we work with have is just, is there going to be another shutdown? That had a huge disruption in the business, and it caused a lot of businesses to go out and never recover because, being shut down for 2 months right at, spring in the summertime, that's typically a pretty busy time for, a lot of retailers, a lot of restaurants. They can start to open up their patios, and, so it was a challenging time. And so, we need to have landlords that understand the situation, that can be flexible, that can, work with tenants on a case-by-case basis. Not every tenant, not every property is going to have the same situation, but, with malls being shut down, those interior tenants couldn't even operate a business. So, those landlords had to take a step back and understand the situation, and it's not a one-size-fit-all approach. And so, with that being a challenge, that creates an opportunity as well that, retailers and restaurants have had the opportunity to reinvent themselves. A great example of that is that, there's an even larger push for the drive-through and drive-up windows. We're trying to create more patio space for restaurants. And also on the sit-down restaurants, for the most part, they really were making all their money on the sit down eating, on the bar business, and the takeout was just some ancillary income. And because they were forced to shut down the dine-in seating and then have some partial patio, and now they're starting to open up inside again, they've had the ability to figure out how to better orchestrate the takeout process of business. And so, I think once some of these restaurants that can open up again 100% and not just 50% occupancy, if they can have those streams of income moving full force, I think we're going to see an increase in restaurant sales, before COVID, just because they can better utilize their kitchen space and just make it a nicely run machine. And, I think that some other opportunities is, just, with the vacancy coming up is, tenants are kind of getting the pendulum swing in their direction as well. So you're going to see some more leasing activity. And, some of my concerns before COVID were that some of the rents were a little bit inflated and at risk of tenants vacating because we're not there. And I think that now when you see a little bit more vacancy rate rise, landlords are going to be more willing to just cut a rent deal, maybe a 5 to 10% decrease in rent. And I think that's much more sustainable with the sales volumes of what these tenants are projecting.
Thanks, Doug. Rico, as we move into your greatest challenges and how that might work into an opportunity, do you mind, we have a question, comparing and contrasting the central business district with suburban markets, and then go back to the others to do that same kind of reply. Thank you.
Sure. So clearly, over the last 5 or 10 years, there's been a re-urbanization of all central business districts domestically in the United States. I would say personally, professionally, I would say 3 out of every 5 phone calls had a sincere consideration of the central business district or the downtown area for interest. And I would say coming out of COVID with a very small markets segment, we're looking at maybe 3 out of every 5 calls now being more tiered towards the suburban market. So I think companies are more open to the easy button, which is, hey, go to the suburbs, control what you get. It's the same retail neighborhoods that you have the rooftops in, and you don't have any of the uncertainty from a security standpoint, from a density standpoint, from an overly cautious standpoint that you have in the central business districts. I do think that will flatten out over time. I think that's a small segment of just the nature of where we are with this COVID situation. Back to the question to the group, and I thought Doug and the team did a great job. What I would say the biggest effect on the office sector is there's this ball and socket relationship between a landlord's ability to negotiate a lease with term, something greater than 5 years, 3, 5, 7, 10-year leases, and their ability to recruit a lender for a project. What we're seeing right now is a ton of uncertainty, especially by the national groups, the groups with hundreds of dots on a map, i.e. hundreds of office locations. And those groups are wanting to take a wait and see approach to COVID, both with regards to what their headcount will be, as well as is there going to be a change in the dynamic of how they're going to handle their office space, i.e. do maybe take less space. Those 2 factors are equating to most tenants, and I think most of the tenant reps in the brokerage field will bring this up. Hey, tenants want to do 1, 2, maybe 3-year leases. What that ball and socket relationship with the capital markets is, if owners cannot achieve longer term leases, banks are less likely to lend on those properties, which ultimately creates kind of an undertow of problems with refinancing properties, even if healthy occupancy remains in the property, because they don't have the longevity of the leases. It could be a systemic problem. We could come out of this, and as Doug had mentioned, maybe there's some price corrections that a tenant can achieve by maybe making the unpopular decision, the contrarian decision, which is, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to get a 5 or a 10% rent reduction in exchange for booking in a longer term lease. And I like the idea of having a less expensive monthly cost, and I'm okay making a long-term commitment to this space because fundamentally it's what I need to be able to operate in this marketplace.
Thanks for that. And just to ask you a further question, do you see people abandoning office or using the same amount of space to spread out for their employees, or we really have a pulse on that yet?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I can't see people being as productive working from home as they can be working in an office. I just feel like that collegial approach to strategic thinking, to business development, to bouncing off good and bad ideas, and the camaraderie of at least my understanding of the sales sequence really needs to be a touch and feel component. I do think that there are some companies, probably in the tech-centric area, that will take a run at it to see if they can be productive remotely, especially with startups, I think, where they're mindful of what their budget is. But as a whole, in Cleveland, Ohio, we're not San Francisco, we're not DC, we're not New York City. Our rents aren't $80 or $100 a square foot. So when you start thinking about what you're contributing to rent and the overall kind of snapshot of what your expenses is, on the office side, it's probably between 5 to 7% of your revenues. When you think about 5 to 7% to have a brick and mortar location where your team can be more productive, it kind of feels to me like money well spent. But only time will tell. I do think that what you could see is a little bit more hoteling in the professional service industry. Maybe a law firm says, look, we have 80 timekeepers. We need 60 offices because just the natural rule of thumb is that maybe those people aren't coming in every single day. Maybe they're out in the field, and maybe you check in at the front desk and you don't sit in the same office with your picture of your family in your office, your items. You just kind of plug in your laptop, and then you have what we call a kind of a hospital or a hoteling workspace. That may come into play a little bit more, but in the whole grand scheme of things, the expense in our market is somewhat different than the 19-hour cities where they get rents that are 3-4x to our market.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially on the being more productive. For me personally, I thrive off of being around people, so I appreciate that input. And Doug, can you address the suburban versus more central types of properties that you're seeing and the impact there? And I think we even had a comment or a question asked on drive-throughs with fast food being a proven failure. I don't know about that. Interested in your perspective.
Okay, yeah, I'll start with the first one. As we've seen more of a flight to work from home, remote working, things of that nature, what's the sector that has benefited the most has been the suburban. Suburban retail has, their daytime population has increased now because people are staying home. The urban core, it's been a challenge. I mean, I know here locally that, the offices were shut down for a while, not just due to COVID, but other events happening in the downtown area. And I think that moving forward, that there's going to be an impact of that people just don't want to necessarily cross paths with people on a second by second, minute by minute basis. I mean, we're obviously not New York, so it's not as intense, but there's still that factor. And so I do think that the urban core CBD retail, it's an uphill battle for them for the immediate time being. I think they're trying to figure it out, and I know the restaurants downtown have taken a hit because there's just not the same type of traffic at lunch, at dinner. Earlier before we got on here, we're talking about sports and how college football and things of that nature. I think just that overall activity in the downtown area is going to have a major impact on the retail. And I haven't heard any reports or projections on the potential loss of business because of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Indians, and potentially the Browns. But I know that back when LeBron came back and when he left, that the sales figures were just through the roof. Positive one way, negative another way. So that's kind of what I see is just that the foot traffic downtown has decreased, and so obviously the sales of the CBD retail has decreased accordingly. The suburban's staying fairly strong for now. And then the other question, Suzanne, that was about drive-throughs?
Yeah, we had a question about the struggle with drive-throughs for fast food. Do you see that?
Well, right now, if you go to any fast food restaurant, there's a line at the drive-through. I think it's really been eye-opening for these restaurants nationwide. It seems like only a handful of them have figured it out. Like Chick-fil-A, I don't care how busy they are, they seem to process the customers as timely as possible. But we've been seeing for a couple of years now, as the consumer trend has changed to things need to be a little more instantaneous. Busy working parents that have kids in the car and don't want to get out, just want to hit the drive-through. More and more restaurants have adapted the double drive-through model. You're starting to see employees outside with iPads taking orders just to help push the line through. So yeah, I think with respect to the restaurants and the retailers adapting to it, I think it does take some time. I know some locations just you don't have the layout or the space to create a double drive-through. But I think moving forward on new construction projects, you're going to see a big push for double drive-through lanes, or your typical food QSR concept that never had a drive-through before, I think is looking into adding the drive-through lane or a pickup lane at least, just to accommodate that customer that really doesn't want to get out of their car. And especially in our market, when our winters can be pretty rough, it's a major convenience factor of just staying in the car, staying warm, staying dry, and getting your food.
Okay, interesting. Fred, I know the suburban downtowns question doesn't necessarily play to industrial the same way, but we do have our warehouse district and our near east side, so adjacent downtown. Are you seeing any difference in the industrial sector in that regard?
Sure. Traditionally for industrial, it's more of a, the bulk of the activity is in the suburbs. You look at the growth markets around Cleveland, and they tend to be close to the interstates, is where and centrally located between Cleveland and Akron. But over the years, a hot little sector for the industrial has been small industrial buildings, say 5,000 to 30,000 square feet, on the near downtown, near east side, or on the west side of Cleveland. And those small buildings have been hot. There's a lot of entrepreneurial businesses and private, and smaller privately held companies that have been around for a long time that are looking to upgrade facilities. They had confidence in downtown. So some of these small listings for the industrial brokers have been hot little commodities and good bread and butter kind of business. And that, no question, we've seen a softening since the COVID, but expect that to return soon as the trend. And obviously, there's excitement about the opportunity corridor and sites and development opportunities there. And with the success of Weston's project over in Madison Avenue on the west side, leasing to Amazon, I think that's going to spur additional interest for infill site redevelopment sites in the city of Cleveland.
Okay, thank you. Craig, I think this one is right up your alley, but I know that with Cleveland having utilized tax credits, one of the top 5 cities in the United States to utilize credits. Tell us about the federal and state legislative advocacy, how it's been before COVID, how it is now, and then others as you know of that impact on your area, please chime in.
Okay, thanks. Todd, if you have my slide, can you hear me? I had a slide I wanted to share,
Of course,
the advocacy slide.
coming your way. There you are.
So, advocacy can take many forms, whether it be appearing before a local planning or zoning board in support or opposition of a planned project or reuse of an existing property. Maybe some of you contribute to PACs, political action committees for some of the trade associations that you belong to, or actually taking part in lobbying efforts in Washington and in Columbus in the state of Ohio. I first got involved with advocacy personally with the American Institute of CPAs in 1999. I signed up to be a legislative key person and participated in congressional fly-ins to Washington to advocate on behalf of businesses and business owners for not only just accounting and tax regulation and reform, but fair taxation and policy that would advocate for the creation of jobs and business. And whether it be Suzanne with the Mortgage Bankers Association, or some of you and your clients are members of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I mentioned NAIOP. Other groups that have advocacy include BOMA, the U.S. Real Estate Roundtable, the U.S. Green Building Council, ICSC, the National Retail Federation, the AIA. Big Pharma and Health are by far the largest PACs and contributors to federal legislators' lobbying efforts each year. The insurance companies, utility companies, manufacturing. Right now, the National Restaurant Association and the retail and hotel industry are really, really pushing for relief in COVID-19 in this current situation. So NAIOP and these other groups are largely on the same page as it relates to relief and job retention, and loans and grants and forgivable loans and grants, and not having to recognize an income tax consequence of a forgivable loan. Right now, the PPP loans that are forgivable are tax-free, and the payroll deductions deductible, and a lot of that is because of advocacy efforts. 1031 exchanges and historic tax credits and new market tax credits and affordable housing tax credits. A lot of this legislation that our members and developer owners enjoy, these were on the chopping block in Congress in the 2015 tax reform discussions and again in the 2017 tax reform discussions. And through advocacy efforts from all the real estate and trade associations that touch real estate, 1031 exchanges were preserved, historic tax credits were preserved, low income and new market tax credits preserved. Advocacy also helps set policy and permitting as it relates to streams and wetlands with the U.S. Army Corps and the EPA, brownfields, depreciation. Congress extended the transportation bill 2 years ago. Owners and operators of commercial property throughout the U.S. supported extension of that transportation and infrastructure bill and a possible future transportation and infrastructure bill, because our customers, our supply and distribution chains, our rail, our roads and bridges are key to getting our employees and our customers and our freight and our materials from point A to point B. Healthcare, energy and sustainability, environmental affairs, capital markets and finance. Advocacy touches all of these things. And in my opinion, if our pro real estate and business trade associations are not at the table, they're going to be left out. And right now, all these groups are very active, working with Congress, both House and Senate, to try to preserve and get businesses to survive. I read recently that over 25,000 restaurants are closed in the state of Ohio alone, and 60% of those are permanently closed. And things got to change. It could get worse before it gets better.
Well, thank you for that. Those are some tough numbers to hear, but I think we've all been wondering about a lot of that, including the topic about working remotely, et cetera. I think that it would be interesting to get your perspective on how you think that owners of commercial real estate could find creative ways in this time to enhance their cash flow, at least through the balance of this year, if not longer.
Well, before I touch on that, I wanted to make mention, and this could potentially help in terms of tenant retention and for owner occupants in buildings of all types for the benefit of their owners and employees. You know, indoor air quality is probably going to be a top of the topic discussion that's going to be had right now for both tenants in leased space and owner occupants in buildings. And I'm happy to say that in 2017, the tax legislation allowed for the immediate expensing of retrofitting of non-residential HVAC systems to be eligible for Section 179 expensing. And the after-tax cost for the for-profit owner operator or the tenant in lease space that makes those improvements, you do get tax shielding by claiming Section 179 on HVAC, which prior to the 2017 tax bill, you had to capitalize replacement HVAC on a non-residential building over a very, very long 39 years. So that was bad. So in terms of indoor air quality, there are some low-cost, low-voltage HVAC air handling ductwork inserts that can be put in air handling for indoor air quality to sterilize air. So those of you that are tenants in leased space, Rico, in your building there, you might want to have a discussion with Cresco about asking the landlord to install these low-cost, low-voltage air sterilization units in the air handling. And that goes for, you know, a hotel or an apartment complex or, you know, just about any other commercial or multifamily residential application. Increasing cash flow, well, fortunately, Congress has passed some stimulus, the PPP loan, which is great, the ability to make that forgivable and not have to pay tax on it's great. But there's also, for those individuals or owners that either didn't apply or weren't eligible for a PPP loan, there is an employee retention credit that's available. There's qualified retirement plan loan distributions. You know, that's maybe not the most favorable option, but if a business owner is strapped for cash and can't tap any other sources of cash flow or financing, getting a penalty-free qualified retirement plan distribution or loan is an option. The IRS has come up with some pretty favorable change in accounting methods. So for taxpayers who either haven't filed their 2019 return yet or who are looking to at year end to file their 2020 return, through some favorable change in accounting methods, whether it be converting from accrual to cash, the small taxpayer definition was raised from under $5 million a year in revenue or assets to under $25 million. The 2017 tax bill. So potentially changing your accounting method from accrual to cash is an immediate source of cash flow when filing, let's say, an extended 2019 tax return that would be due for a calendar filer September 15th or October 15th. Changes in accounting method related to revenue recognition, potentially accelerating real estate taxes under what's called the lien method. for real estate taxes paid after December 31st of a calendar year can potentially be deducted. Changing your method for deducting prepaids. The 2017 tax bill had eliminated the loss carryback provision that businesses had in the event they had a bad year. They could carry back and amend the prior 2 tax years. Well, the 2017 tax bill eliminated that. However, in March of this year, the CARES Act came up with a temporary 5-year net operating loss carryback and made this retroactive to the 2018 tax year, which means that by either a change in accounting method application with a timely filed 2019 or 2020 return, and that includes extensions, or for partnerships who are willing to amend their 2018 or 2019 return, if a loss is created, that loss can now be carried back a full 5 calendar tax years, and tax refunds obtained and expedited refunds obtained within 60 days on average, we're told. So that's tremendous. PACE financing is available, and that's an option for anyone that owns a commercial property and is seeking to upgrade with energy efficient standards and maybe even solar or geothermal or wind, and have that financing be assessed like a special assessment in a special improvement district, and that be paid over together with the real estate tax. Cost segregation studies are great opportunities. Go on, Suzanne.
You are a wealth of information, Craig Miller. So I appreciate that you know these things, that you can pass these along to our attendees. I do want to give the last few minutes to everyone. So including the topic of cash flow enhancement, if it isn't already covered by Craig, which it may very well be, give us a minute outlook on your industry sector and what we can expect, in your opinion, between now and next year. Rico, go ahead.
Turn your sound on, Rico.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I think as a whole, tenants and landlords are in for a little bit of a dogfight over the next, let's say, 6 months or so, trying to figure out, leverage and really kind of compromises to accommodate the goals of both parties. I would leave the group with kind of a voice message. If you call Fred Geis, it says, "Hang in there, it'll get better soon."
Thank you. Doug, what is your input?
Yeah, just real quick to touch base on ways that owners can increase cash flow. We're starting to see a push for kiosk retailers and parking lots, coffee shops, food carts, and then ATMs. That's been going on for a couple of years now. Some retailers, some mall owners are putting in drive-in movie theaters just to get more people in the area. And then we're starting to see more of the Tesla charging stations throughout as well. So landlords are renting out the spaces to Tesla, and then, that's how that works. So real quick, just the outlook on the market. I agree with what Rico said to some degree on the retail world. Essential retail is really strong right now. Essential retail would be your grocery store, your dollar store, food, hardware stores, auto parts, auto repair. On the single tenant investment side of that, those are still trading at really aggressive cap rates. They've actually compressed and gone lower, so there's higher purchase prices on those now. A developer can't build them fast enough for the most part. However, on some of the more challenging or potentially distressed, retail or investment opportunity, you're going to see some lower pricing, higher cap rates. So you're going to see a larger disparity between the Class A and the Class B and Class C properties. large shopping centers without a grocery anchor are they're going to have some challenges on just trading. But if you have a grocery anchor or small out parcel strip center with tenants that weren't shut down or were barely shut down, those are going to hold pretty steady.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. Fred.
Am I up?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't hear the intro.
That's okay.
So I think it's cautious optimism for the next year or so in the primary markets around the country. Industrial is extremely hot, and e-commerce is the primary driver. Cleveland, obviously, being more of a secondary or tertiary market. We are going to continue to get the trickle down effect over the next year. There's winners and losers in this market, and it all depends on what part of the food chain that you're connected to. And fortunately, in the industrial sector, the strong sectors in the market are I think are going to carry us through this difficult period, and will continue to do so. In projecting out even 2 to 3 years, there will continue to be a wave of e-commerce, technology, food and beverage related demand in the marketplace.
Okay. Craig, any other thoughts on that regard?
Well, prior to COVID, there was a considerable volume of capital chasing commercial real estate assets, and most investors were well capitalized with relatively low leverage, and the probability of a severe distressed situation was pretty low. And then boom, COVID hit. If capital remains active and there's a lot of cash still sitting on the sidelines, we're optimistic, but it may be a year or two before we see some levels that we saw pre-COVID.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have come to the end of this panel's time. I want to thank Doug Holtzman with Anchor Cleveland, Fred Herrera with CBRE, Rico Petro with Cushman & Wakefield Cresco, and Craig Miller with Duffy Duffy. I'd also like to thank Erie Bank for allowing me to participate in the conference as a moderator. Thanks, everyone.
What a great group. Thank you, everybody. We're going to convene for 10-minute break at 11:10 Central Time. We'll open the new panel. So go back to the lobby where you got the link for this panel. You'll see panel 3. Click on that link. You'll be able to watch that. I will meet you there in 10 minutes. Thank you.